Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Brian. This is the frame from a 1976 Jeep CJ5. We're going to really start in earnest on the restoration of this vehicle. So finally got the frame in the garage, got on the lift. We're going to go ahead and strip the frame down, pull the axles off, springs, brake lines, all that. Inspect the frame, see if there's any damage we missed. Clean it up, paint it, and we'll start the whole process of putting this thing back together. Here goes. So a little background, if you hadn't watched the first video. I got a Jeep CJ to restore, and it turns out this junk, title's messed up or non-existent, don't know. Bought this on Facebook Marketplace for the frame. Frame appears to be in pretty good shape. Obviously, got some brake line problems. Parking brake cables, all the usual stuff needs to be replaced, but overall the frame looks to be in decent shape. So I'm going to pull, I got new brake lines, so I'll pull all this garbage off. Start by getting the frame stripped. Obviously a lot of stuff we're going to need to replace. Won't be using this front axle because it's drum brakes. The donor-ish vehicle has discs and power steering. So let me start by getting this thing lifted up and start getting all this extraneous stuff that we're not going to use off of it. Figure we'll start here at the front. So there's no lining on those brakes. That's fine. We're not using them anyway. Now that's a shocker. Figure this stuff will be permanently attached. Say the shock might be good, but it only compresses and nothing happens. We'll be reusing this, so can use whatever means we got to do to get this off here. Possibly even a torch. looks like, along with the steering box. I'm going to get this whole front leaf spring. So let me let this down a little bit, see if I can get the height right and set the frame on these jack stands. This has been repaired before. At least they used flared lines in a union. At least they did it right. Fine thread bolts. those of you following along at home, that rear cross member is actually welded as well as riveted, so they did not want that thing going anywhere. So I have the frame cleaned as well as I'm going to clean it, wire brushed, etc. Next, I'm going to apply this OSFO. This will act like a rust stop layer, converts it to something paintable, stops it from rusting. There's areas like right here where we'll have to go back and add some metal to fix that. And where I guess this was torched out, I'm not sure what that's all about. The need to fix that on both spots, but to get going, we're gonna go ahead and get this thing coated so we can get the majority of it painted. Some of you astute viewers may have noticed this patch on my hand. Well, that's covering up 6 stitches that are right there. So I was cutting this bolt out of the leaf spring with the grinder like this, and somehow the grinder swung back around and penetrated my hand. So I'm a little gingerly with that for a while. So we'll just kind of slop this on everywhere, let it do its thing. The OSFO is dried for about 24 hours, which is what's recommended. It has spots where it looks gray, and apparently that's just what it does. Some of the old paint, rust, whatever. It's all been treated, or as much as I can get. Next up, I'm going to stir this up, and I'm going to apply this with a brush. That level of Rust-Oleum paint has dried. There was just one coat. It wasn't ever intended to be kind of the final coat, more like a primer. But before I go on with the next coat of what I'm going to use, I would like to fix these spots where wasn't sure what was happening there, but it looks like this was torched out on both sides. Not sure why that was done like that. So I'm going to grind all this area out. I have a piece of metal that's the same thickness that I should be able to cut to fit that, and then I'm going to weld that back in. I figured I might as well get that done to make this the right size hole before I went ahead and finished the top coat. And there's some little spots in the rear of the frame that I need to touch up the welder, so let me get that prepped. I kind of cut out this little pie-shaped piece, got it fitted, have it held in with a magnet. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's pretty much filled in. There's one little pinhole right there. And I think this is mostly cosmetic anyway. I'll go ahead and cut out the same piece for the other side, and then we'll figure out how to shape this into the hole and grind it flat. So I finished welding those, ground that down. I'll need to come in and clean up that circle to make that, you know, look right, and possibly some filler. I mean, the radiator is going to cover most of that, but it's not a huge deal. In an effort to move things forward, I want to go ahead and paint the inside of the frame with the final coat so I can work on brake lines and fuel lines and that kind of stuff. So next we're going to apply some of this KBS blacktop chassis coater. It's a single stage kind of urethane. It's supposed to be rock hard but it won't chip off, and self-leveling, so we'll give it a shot. My thought process is I'll go ahead and paint the inside and the top of the frame. I've scuffed it up with some Scotch-Brite. Go ahead and paint the inside, then I can work on getting the brake lines installed. And then later on, once we get further along, we can do the bottom of the frame and the outside. Figure while the garage is good and warm, go ahead and try to get this applied. Give it time to cure overnight. According to the directions, you can spray this, you can roll this, you can brush this. You don't want to overwork it and get brush strokes. It should be self-leveling. Leave a nice, flat, glossy finish. It is a lot runnier than I expected. This product is apparently a moisture cured urethane, so it uses moisture from the air to help cure it. So they don't want you over brushing it and getting too much stirred up, or don't want you to pour a bunch in something and then pour it back in the can, because that'll start the curing process. So we're gonna do the old cheap paint roller method, and we're going to roll this on because it's going to take forever brushing it. I don't want to get too much pour it out in in a pan and then have to pour it back in the can, because it'll start the curing process. And I feel like with this roller we can probably get it applied way more efficiently than we could with a brush. You can get it rolled out, and then we can come back and fill in these little grooves with the brush. So I have that applied to the top and the inside of the frame. I think, everywhere. I don't want to overbrush it, otherwise you'll see marks. So hopefully this will level out and be all glossy, although I'm more interested in the protection at this point. So now that it's good and warm in here, we'll let that cure overnight. I have this bucket of hardware I took off, little brackets for brake lines, parking brake. Probably don't need that, but that was part of the parking brake adjuster. So I need to clean all that up. I have this Evapo rust that I'd use for something else. Apparently you can keep reusing this. So I saved it. Go ahead and pour that in here and let that percolate overnight so we can possibly get this some of this stuff painted up. I was able to source a new rear cross member to replace this one. I had it cut off. Anyway, it's not exactly 100% the same, but it'll function as we need it. I've also cleaned up some of the brackets for it, some of the suspension bump stops. So I think this video is probably getting long enough now. So we'll bring you back next time on part 2 of this whole Jeep CJ restoration. Thanks for watching. See you next time.